Hello, we're back again with Frank O'Brien. This time the talk is Artemis Return to the Moon, an update on the progress that is being made with this NASA program.
Yeah, hi, and thank you again. We've had some exciting things coming up, and although this talk was delayed a bit, it actually works out very well. Uh, the last couple months have had plenty of changes to the upcoming Artemis program and the upcoming Artemis 2 mission so that we can give you a completely up-to-date, as of the end of October, update on the mission. There's been enough changes over the last couple months that anything you might have heard, say, back during the summer is now obsolete. And so we're working very hard to make certain we get everything you need to know. Now, just as a quick introduction, I'm Frank O'Brien. I'm what they call a NASA Solar System Ambassador. This is a magnificent program. There's about 1,200 of us all over the country, and even though we're all volunteers, our mission is to go into the community to go and spread the NASA gospel. We cannot, do not, are not, will not charge anyone for any of our services, and believe it or not, no tax dollars are spent on it. This is one of the great bargains in all of government. So you do get a wonderful thing. You can contact us through NASA, and if you want to arrange for a talk or a star party or someone to go visit a bunch of kids in a school, we can be there. So we're going back to the moon. First time in over half a century. This is going to be one of the new groundbreaking missions that we're putting together to just continue on our exploration of the solar system. We're going to be sending 4 astronauts to the moon, around the moon, and back home as early February. This is going to be Artemis 2. We're going to be launching on the SLS rocket. This is first SLS mission on Artemis 1 that went about 3 years ago. And it's probably going to be launching at night, so the view will look very, very similar. This is a monster rocket, 330 feet tall, almost as big as the Saturn V, in many ways more powerful than the Saturn V, and just amazing brand new technology. The mission plan for Artemis 2 is complex. They're trying to get an awful lot done on one mission. They're squeezing a lot of stuff out of this too. One of the things is that this is the first manned launch, first humans on board this new spacecraft. We need to check lots of different capabilities. The life support system, how well does it maneuver? Is it a wonderfully, wonderfully responsive vehicle, or is it kind of a dog, kind of sluggish and all the rest? We need to make certain that the radiation shielding is appropriate. Silly things like, can you make a decent, meal there? Does the food preparation systems work well? All the things you need to do, because we're going to be going away on a 10-day mission. We're first going to launch, hop into a low orbit around the Earth, and then check all those systems that we need to have to keep the spacecraft running. Is life support working? The radio's working? All those things. And we're going to give it a test drive. This is going to be the first time people, not the ground controllers, not the computers, but people are going to be maneuvering and hauling the spacecraft around. Again, is it nice and agile like a sports car? Or is it like your father's old beat-up Cadillac? We have a good idea it's going to be nice, sharp, and responsive. They're very good about building these things. So we're going to spend a couple hours doing that. And how do we know we're doing it well? When we separate from the upper stage of the rocket, that's going to be following us. It doesn't fall away. We're both in orbit. And so we're going to turn around, and we're going to fly around it a few times, move up close, move back away, twist, turn. This will be used as our reference for any kind of maneuvering we're going to do. So we're going to do that for a little bit of time. We're then going to fire our engines, raise the orbit a little bit, and then as we come around the Earth again, this is a long orbit. We're going to go around the Earth. It's going to take a day. And then we're off to the moon. That's going to be about a 3 to 4 day journey. Apollo was in a little bit more of a rush, and they had a lot more capabilities in some ways. Took only 3 days. We're going to take 4 because it's a lot more fuel efficient. And we're going to go around the moon. We're actually not going to get super close like Apollo did. We're going to be about 6,000 miles away. Zip around the back of the moon. People will be seeing the backside of the moon for the first time in half a century. And without stop. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so then I believe the last time we actually landed on the moon was December 11th, 1972. I think it was Apollo 17. Does that sound correct?
That's correct.
And
so it's been 53 years since
yes,
we've been back.
Been a while.
It's been a long while.
And then
it's about time.
And the Artemis 1 was an uncrewed mission, correct?
That's correct.
And this is the Artemis 2, which is scheduled for February 2026. And it's going to be a manned crew, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so those people are going to be doing the tests of the spacecraft, again, to make certain it's ready for Artemis 3. Which on paper, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the second half of the talk, which on paper will be the first ones to put foot on the moon in what will then be about 57 years. And it's about time. So anyway, finishing up our trajectory home, another 3-4 days, and then we go smashing into the atmosphere again. And we're going to be landing right off the coast of California, hopefully. And at least that's what the current plan is. That may change. But we'll have completed, again, another mission to the moon for the first time in 2 generations, which is absolutely an amazing thing.
So I guess the reason why we do this is so that we can first unman one, just to test everything that's working, test how the radiation is, and then this time with people, to test all of those things before we actually land someone there. We want to, I guess that's one of the most vital reasons why there is success, that they test things thoroughly ahead of time.
Yeah, we can test a tremendous amount without the need for people on board. We really can. But when it comes time to put people on there, now you have people flipping switches, pushing buttons, breathing air. A lot of this stuff that wasn't exercised in the very first Artemis mission. So, does it work? All of our testing says it does. All of our simulations say it does. But we all know what's written on paper sometimes isn't exactly right. Artemis 1, with the exception of one major issue, which we'll talk about, worked brilliantly. Very few problems. It was a very clean spacecraft. Think of, sometimes you'll buy a car and, you're back to the dealership in a week with a, punch list of half a dozen things. This did not have that. We spent a lot of money, a lot of time to make certain everything was right. And quite honestly, virtually all of it worked great. So we're real encouraged that this is going to go just as well. So keep our fingers crossed. But anyway, so what we have here is a wonderful beauty shot of what the astronauts are going to be seeing as they go past the moon again. We get crabby when we hear it called the dark side of the moon, because there's always a dark side of the moon. Sometimes the dark side of the moon faces us. Yes. But they'll see the edge of the moon, the terminator. They'll see a lit up part. I forget what phase of the moon it'll be, so I can't tell you exactly what they'll be seeing. But we're going to have human eyeballs looking at the moon up close. That's an amazing thing.
It's exciting.
And in the distance, again, for the first time in easily 56 years, you're going to see Earthrise. Watching the Earth come up over the horizon.
Maybe with better cameras, 4K technology to
doesn't hold a candle to a Hasselblad, which they used.
Oh, so that's exciting.
This is not like a little point and shoot from 20 years ago that they had. They had Hasselblad medium format with the best lenses money could buy, and it was those things can be blown up far better than any 4K image.
Interesting. All right. Didn't
Yeah,
know that.
very nice. And their Hasselblad digital cameras are almost frightening. Now, we launched Artemis 1 about 3 years ago. That was a year ago, November. Crazy thought that was 3 years ago. It was the last time. What the heck was taking all this time? You know, we fired off a new moon mission every 6 months. You know, during Apollo. During the Gemini program, it was every 3 months they were firing something off. What the heck was taking 3 years? Well, fair point. When you fly something for the first time, the first thing that happens when it gets home is every engineer on the planet wants to take it apart and see how well their stuff did. Fair thing to say. Completely reasonable. But in the only real problem, and this wasn't trivial, this scared people to death, we had a problem with our heat shield. You're coming in at 7 miles a second. That's about Mach 35.
Wow.
Now, coming back from Earth orbit is only Mach 25. You're moving. And ahead of the spacecraft, not the temperature of the spacecraft, but ahead of the spacecraft, that shock as you're going through the atmosphere is about 6,000 degrees. That will vaporize anything. By the time that heat radiates back to the spacecraft proper, you're talking 2,500, 3,000 degrees. Again, that's a bit balmy. We have developed, and we've used since the days of Apollo, again, almost 60 years ago, wonderful heat shield technology. Very expensive in Apollo, very time-consuming to make, but it worked great. Again, one of the great successes, coming back from the moon, being able to support a big spacecraft with hardly a problem. They had huge amounts of trust in it. Also, it was terribly overbuilt. We wouldn't do that today.
So what does overbuilt mean exactly?
Oh, it turns out they used about 1.5 times more shielding than they needed.
Oh, so they
material is weight, and weight is everything in space flight.
And that was just probably just as a precaution, just to be safe.
Absolutely.
And then you find out later that it was more than necessary.
If you had to do it over, you wouldn't use as much. As one example.
I understand.
Well, now we've gotten a lot smarter, and making the Apollo heat shield was horribly time-consuming. We could show movies and explain it. We don't need to, and not enough time, but. And the very first experimental test before Artemis 1, we actually had a mission about 10 years ago to test out the old Apollo technologies, and it worked great. But it's terribly expensive, terribly time-consuming, all the things you don't want in a project. And so we've redesigned it for Artemis 1. Instead of having these fancy honeycomb construction, we use actual blocks. They're probably about this big, of heat shield material. And they were very securely fastened to the spacecraft itself. This worked great in testing. But you fly to see if your tests are good. What we found wasn't going to be catastrophic. The astronauts were not imminently, or the spacecraft wasn't in imminent danger of burning up or potentially astronauts dying. But it didn't perform anywhere near the way we expected. What had happened, very condensed, is that the trajectory it flew, the temperatures were about what we expected. The trajectory was just perfect. But the material of the heat shield wasn't retained enough heat, so it started vaporizing a little bit. They expected this. And when something vaporizes, you get gas. It was anticipated that that gas would just percolate through the heat shield material. It didn't. And because of that, chunks started flying off.
Oh, boy.
This is a bad day.
Yeah.
And in the picture here you see of the base of the heat shield, you can see a number of holes in there. And some of them are quite big. Did not go all the way through. We were okay. but you don't want to be cutting back your margins if you don't have to. You can see that it's so terribly pot-marked in the hottest places. This is something that needed to be fixed. We needed to understand what our problem was, and we needed to fix it. Is there a way to avoid this? Is one of the big questions. So, it took 2 years. And NASA overthinks everything wonderfully. This is the kind of thing you want to overthink on. They saw the problem. They then replicated it time and again in the lab, so they knew they were on the right course. They recreated the problem, and now they've come up with a new formulation, whole new heat shield technology, etc., modified the formulations of it, and they're going to fly that on Artemis 3. Now, the problem is, this is Artemis 2. As the existing heat shield with all the problems. Can we get around that? It turns out, yes. If your problem was, as they discovered, the fact that it's just absorbing so much heat and holding it for so long, the idea is to get through that region as quick as you can. And so they're going to be modifying their trajectory. Right now, what we used was a very long entry. The idea was, if we have to stretch our entry, we can do it. And that demonstrated fine. If, for whatever reason, you need to shorten that, or you're coming in too long and you have to come in a bit short, we can do that too. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to spend a lot of time doing their reentry. They're just going to shorten it, and that should work. Test after test says it does. So we should be good with that. The other thing that's holding up Artemis 2 is that, no, this isn't a completely reusable spacecraft. But what we're going to do is basically scavenge the heck out of Artemis 1. And here's a complete list of all the different components that we're pulling out of it. We were supposed to take a lot more, but Artemis 1 was running so late, there's a production line of spacecraft behind it. We were supposed to put computers and about half a dozen other things, all kinds of equipment, into Artemis 2, scavenged from Artemis 1. But, the assembly lines have to keep going. So they scavenged it from Artemis 3. And so the only thing we can pull out quickly are maybe about a dozen components, inertial measurement units, etc., etc. I was shocked to hear that there was something called the vision processing system. What the heck is that? You figure, no, this isn't going to be like Tesla's supposedly autonomous driving. That's your optical navigation. If we lost all communications with Earth, we're able to navigate by the stars completely autonomously. Turn the radios off. We can do it by ourselves.
That's a very good backup unit.
Yes. That is very good. And again, like most of the rest of the mission, it worked wonderfully.
Is that a new technology that is, it's 53 years ago, I don't think they had that, right? They could have had it, or they couldn't.
We had primitive variations on it for 65 years. The Apollo spacecraft, and this sounds crazy, but it's true. You could take a seaman from 200 years ago, show him how you navigate in space. The Apollo spacecraft just used a sextant. Not the one you see on ships, but the exact same concept. A seaman from 200 years ago would understand the principles. And that's how we navigate in space.
Nice.
And it's the concepts are trivial. The implementation is, a little bit tougher. But the concepts are exactly the same as you navigate across the oceans. Absolutely amazing. This system does it all automatically with high precision and all the other fancy stuff. And it works very, very well. Now, getting back to reuse, this is kind of an aside. But again, we're not reusing things like the way SpaceX would reuse one of its Falcon boosters. They say they reuse their spacecraft, the Dragon spacecraft. They really don't. They tear it down. They replace a ton of stuff. The basic core part of the system is there, and it is reused. Artemis is doing the same thing. We're going to strip away the used heat shield. We're going to fix whatever needs to be fixed. And then that basic structure is still good. It's built like a tank. And we're going to put a new heat shield on it, refurbish it for whatever new flight. And here's a whole sequence of all of the kind of reuse. If we need a new guidance platform, we're going to just pull it from another one. We don't need, if we have 10 Artemis missions, we don't need to make 10 copies. The spacecraft is really in good shape. If you go to the Smithsonian and look at the old Apollo spacecraft, well, they look like, not that they're brand new, but they look like they're in good shape. You could, put a fresh coat of paint on and off you go. They're doing that here. And the whole idea is that Project Artemis is so incredibly expensive, they're trying to save money.
So the one of the reasons I read was why the Apollo mission and manned missions to the moon stopped was because of budget reasons. And so nowadays I think we have the sensibility, not that they didn't do it then, but to recycle and reuse parts to save money and hopefully not prevent us from continuing missions because of budgets.
The budget cutbacks. Apollo was effectively canceled right around the beginning of the Nixon administration. The whole budget had been slashed. I mean, not just space, but everything. Vietnam was kicking up. We were getting to some horrible inflationary periods, et cetera, et cetera. People forget how miserable the 70s were. The whole decade was a real mess. And a lot of things had to be cut. The reason why we had a Skylab program was that one of the last Apollos was canceled. Well, we built the rocket. That's still there. And we need something cheap to do, so we used it that way. So, they're trying. They're really, honestly, they're mortified at the idea how incredibly expensive this is to begin with. And, yes, there are incentives to cut down the price. And here we have Artemis 1 being stripped down. And they're sitting there, and smart engineers are looking at all the parts that worked, and some other guys are saying, we'll take this, I need 2 of those, and they're moving it over to Artemis 2. So that's been the whole history of Artemis. Now for Artemis 2. Yes, our crew. And it's kind of crazy. We always thought the original Apollo, great nationalism, everyone's got an American flag on their shoulder. Well, we have a Canadian. Just like the International Space Station, we have people from all over the world working on it. Americans aren't the only smart people. Canadians for the space station built the robotic arms. That's a good contribution. The Japanese, the Europeans, other folk built other components of the space station. Everyone puts in the brilliant concept, and this is treaty-level agreements. This is stuff just like peace treaties and stuff. We agree we're not going to pay you, or you're going to pay us to do something. You do something for us. You create hardware. You do resupply missions. We'll let you participate in what we can do. And as part of the Artemis program, the Canadians are doing a great contribution. And so they get to fly on a mission. And so we have a Canadian on board.
Wonderful.
For the lunar landing mission, there's great speculation. 2 of the other big contributors, Europe and Japan. If you were a betting man, honestly, one of the people walking on the moon the next time, or going to the moon, is going to be a European or a Japanese.
Yeah, what is it? 2001 Space Odyssey, we were in a race with the Chinese. Is that?
We're going to talk to Chinese.
Yeah, all right, we'll get to that.
You're jumping ahead. He's reading my mind.
But so it's just sometimes science fiction, plays into reality. But
exactly right.
Continue.
Exactly right. So, how far along is Artemis 2? Well, the whole rocket is built. And we've put the spacecraft on it. It's fully fueled. We do have to go through tons of checking. Remember, we're trying to get off to the moon by the early February. We're going to keep this in mind. The mission, again, we're going to be doing a lot of good work. Going up, testing, maneuvering, that sort of thing. Here's what inside the spacecraft looks like. Yes, it's a wide-angle lens and everything looks roomy. It's really not, because now you have four people.
To me.
Well, yeah. You have three of your closest, most intimate friends with you. Yes, wide-angle lens. It is a lot more spacious than Apollo. But there's one more person to bump into. And again, we're looking at all that. The thing to watch for. The thing to see if we're on target, on track, because everything is dependent on one thing. We've been building this stuff for years. Now we got to get it to the pad. There's certain constraints, limitations about how long you want to be out on the launch pad, so they want to do it at the right moment. When we see the rocket rolling out to the pad, it's going to be in a couple months. You're not going to put it out a year in advance, because you want to protect it from the elements. When we see, and we're expecting this in early to mid-December, for Artemis 2 to roll to the pad, yeah. That'll determine whether we're launching in February, March, April. They really want to be launched by April.
So they put it out 3 months ahead of time? Why is that?
Well, okay, we've tested the spacecraft to death in the assembly areas.
Yes.
We've tested the rocket to death in the assembly areas. We've stacked all this stuff. We've tested them all together. But now you're rolling it to the pad. Now that's a perfectly empty, the spacecraft is fueled, but that's a perfectly empty spacecraft. How do you know, and we found this out with Artemis 1, boy did we. How well does the fueling, the ground support infrastructure work? We have to get it fueled. We have to get it powered. We need to have data telemetry. Can mission control operate all the things they need to do to make certain it's healthy, ready to go, etc., etc. We had terrible problems with fueling it the first time. It runs on liquid hydrogen. Hydrogen is a miserable, wretched, and worse propellant, and no one in their right mind would use it except for the idea it's the best fuel you can use on a rocket. Most efficient, most high power, etc. And so you're stuck with it. And it is a bear to work with. And we find that out. The shuttle was delayed constantly because it's hydrogen powered. God forbid if you had a hydrogen car. These are the kind of things they have to work the bugs out. They spent huge amounts of time and effort. Artemis 1, they think they got it now. It worked really well at the end of when they finally got Artemis 1 off. So they're going to be testing all that. That takes time. This is immensely complex. Now, Artemis 3. Here's where things get interesting. And I don't want to go too long. Artemis 3. We're going to be landing on the moon.
That's wonderful.
That might be science fiction. In a long story, this is a busy diagram. We're dependent on someone who hasn't done a lot of lunar flights, SpaceX. We had a competition. Who can build a lunar lander on the cheap? Everyone submits their bids. Lockheed, Boeing, and all these
Blue
other.
Horizon?
What the heck? That's any.
They didn't even have a rocket flying 3 or 4 years ago. You're thinking Blue Origin? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Blue Origin, yes.
They didn't even have a rocket flying. Theirs is now working quite well. And I think later in a month or so, they'll be trying again, and it looks good. SpaceX. They have built the largest rocket on the planet. And because of that, they go, we can land on the moon, and look how cheap we are. Their bid came in half the price, a fraction of the price. In one case, almost 3 times less than any other bidder. If you were NASA and you're scraping pennies Which one are you going to go with?
Yeah, the cheapest one. Yeah.
Everything is built to the lowest bidder. So, SpaceX gets chosen. And they laid it all out what was going to be needed. They're going to be sending the Starship, as they call it. Fly it out to the moon. Meet up with the Orion spacecraft. And bring it down to the surface. Oh, how do you get a Starship to the moon? It turns out it can't reach it. It needs to be refueled. 12 times. That's our best guess. SpaceX doesn't know, and they're building it. NASA certainly doesn't. The speculation is they're going to need 10, some people say 20, I don't think that many, refueling runs just to fill it up with enough gas to get to the moon and get back. Now, every few months, we get another Starship launch. If you're going to the moon and you need 15 flights and it's every couple months, we have to be able to change our cadence. The only problem is nobody has brought 2 spacecraft together and transferred 1 million pounds propellant. Nothing even close. And they want to reuse this. They want to invent all the technologies. Remember, SpaceX was created to go to Mars. Oh, by the way, it does other things. But they want to prove their Mars vehicle to get to the moon. And that seems to be a tall offering. Here we have a little diagram of the concept of operations. Again, it has half a dozen or so tanker flights. Again, plan on at least a dozen. And if it takes a year to fuel this thing up, once every month, that's still going to be a year between missions. That may or may not be acceptable.
So why do they have to keep refueling? And isn't the trip, how long is this trip?
There's what's called the tyranny of the rocket equation. I can build a big rocket with tons of fuel. I can launch it. The only problem is you want to lift all that fuel. So most of the energy is just, the rocket is just using it to get the fuel up. You go, well, I'll add more fuel. It's like a dog chasing its tail. And this is all beautifully summarized in what's called the rocket equation. It's about a 130-year-old equation. And you can't fight it. It's a law of physics. And Starship is heavy. It doesn't use the most efficient fuel. It's efficient enough, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a rocket designed, honestly, for low orbits. SLS is designed to go to the moon. Other rockets are designed to go out to the moon. We could talk that in a separate lecture. But by the time it gets to orbit, it's out of gas. And in order to get all this rocket, 160-foot high rocket, to the moon, weighing about 100 tons empty, it needs to be refueled all the way up to the top.
Why is in the past there was no refueling to get to?
Because we were small, we were light, incredibly light. Half the effort of the Apollo lunar module was in making it light. It was made out of super lightweight aluminum as opposed to stainless steel, which is quite heavy, et cetera, et cetera. The lunar lander, empty, was about 5 tons-ish, give or take. The lunar lander for SpaceX is about 100 tons.
And the reason is it because it's bigger, or it's more durable, or long lasting? What's the reason?
Again, remember, you're talking a Mars vehicle that's supposed to ship 100 tons to Mars, now just making a quick shuttle trip to the moon.
Oh, so it's
way over designed.
Okay.
But it's what SpaceX could bid.
That's what they had available.
And they want NASA to pay for their Mars effort. Oh, by the way, we'll drop you off at the moon.
Yes.
And I'm being very snarky and cynical on that.
Okay.
I'll admit to that up front. But a 160-foot rocket tall and skinny, landing on an undulating surface, we'll see a picture where they're going, is not a recipe for success in my mind. And this is editorial. This is not NASA position. Except, oh, and here's what it's going to look like. We have the Orion spacecraft docking with Starship. A couple crew members will go inside. They'll go down, come back. This is the landing spots we're looking at. This is the South Pole. We're going to the South Pole of the Moon for a number of reasons. About 13 sites, none of them smooth. We certainly wouldn't land this area during Apollo.
So not smooth because there's mountains and craters
everywhere.
Not flat.
Yeah, it's hummocky, it's undulating. You will not find a tabletop environment there. And you want to land something that's top heavy. Because that's what it's going to look like. Everyone says, oh, well, the engines are at the bottom. They're real heavy. No, you have potentially 100 tons up on top. You have to land straight up and down. And this is a great illusion here because it looks like a nice flat area. Yeah. That's not... You look at some of the places Apollo landed at, and the lunar modules all cockeyed, crazy angles, just because... And that was the smooth areas. This would fall over in a heartbeat. And people are not naive. We were desperate to get a lander. SpaceX, so wonderfully decided to, underbid everyone. This is not anywhere near ready. And, yes, it looks very majestic. This is a 400-foot rocket. Saturn V only comes up to about 365 feet. Twice the thrust. This is amazing. It's also a pain because lots of times in the last little bit it goes up as one piece and comes back in a bunch of them.
Some fireworks.
Yeah, it didn't work so well. The last two missions, to be fair, have been very successful. They figured out their problems, thank goodness. But that's not their problem. It's this. Remember how we kept saying, oh, we need to refuel, we need to refuel. That's the basic point of operations for this architecture. And now they're getting skeptical. SpaceX said they were going to do it last year. Oh, then it went to next year, or this year. And now they're saying it won't be ready for the first test until 2026. We're supposed to be landing on the moon in 2027. A lot of the enthusiasm has kind of died down. In a lot of ways, no one is being so naive as to think they're going to make 2027. And as a matter of fact, former administrator at NASA, Jim Bridenstine, went before Congress about a month, back in September, almost 2 months ago, and said flat out, we made a bad decision. There is no way on the planet that SpaceX is going to be anywhere near ready. Needless to say, Elon Musk is, he's tweeting about it, as only Elon Musk can do. But basically, Congress has been told, and nobody at NASA was naive enough to believe that this was going to happen. Starship is now the pacing issue in landing on the moon. To the point, where the current interim administrator, Sean Duffy, is now saying, this is so bad, we're having the contracts reopened. And now you were asking about Blue Origin a moment ago.
Yes.
Blue Origin has been working on their own lander. Now they have the big one they're contracted for, but that won't be ready until the early 30s. They have a testing demonstration. You do the stuff in stages. And so Blue Origin is going to be launching this middle of next year. It's built. It's going to be fueled soon. It's ready to go. Mm. And they said, well, we could put a crew cabin on this. It's about the size of the Apollo lunar module, a little bit smaller. We're already pressed and ready to go. And everyone sits around and goes, this might work. Stay tuned. Nothing formal has been decided. But we have another problem. Now here we have Jim Bridenstine. Rah, rah. We'd like to do this. It isn't going to be done. At the same time, and we're not going to get into politics, we have the administration, not just Sean Duffy, but the president, who has a real bone to pick with China. And this is our final chapter. We're going to finish this up. We're in a space race, not with the Russians like we were 60 years ago. The perception is that it's with the Chinese. And the Chinese are a lot more formidable than the Russians ever were.
Yes, I think there's a number of advantages that they have over what was before.
Yes.
Well, the Chinese are good. Let's call it what it is. After all, they have their own space station. It's been up for almost a decade now. They've been shuttling crews, supply ships, everything just like the International Space Station. They have folk living up there. They've mastered spacewalks. They have it figured out. They're good at this. Their technology, all that stuff about, oh, well, they steal everything, that may be true. But you look at every jetliner on the Earth that's being built today. Every one of them all looks the same. They got two engines under the wing, pilots up front, passengers in back, etc. They all look the same because that's what works. That's exactly what works. And so, yeah, it may look the same, but so does every jetliner ever made. Ooh, they're pretty good at this. And they're very good at their spacecraft, especially automated ones. And this was brilliant. This was fabulous. Their very first attempt to go to Mars, and it worked first time, brilliantly. The Chinese are fabulous for sending landers. Last year they landed on the backside of the moon. They had to set up a whole communications network just to support it around the moon, and it works great.
It's just because it's on the far side, you can't send a signal directly. Exactly. You have to send it to a satellite that's just going to...
Right. They have this master.
Yes.
They have this all figured out. And their first lander had a little rover on it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like number 5 from Short Circuit.
yeah, exactly. And again, it's just a brilliant, audacious, stupid, no need for this, but makes a great picture. Little rover goes out, drops effectively a GoPro, rolls back, and they have their selfie.
That's funny.
I think this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Their first time, they pulled it off with sophistication. And now, this was just a couple months ago, they have their full lunar lander under test right now. This is not artwork. There's a whole video which I'll be showing. This is built. Oh, granted, there's some prototype elements. Chinese say that they're going to be on the moon by 2030. I would believe them. Oh, it might be a little later or something. But they are more than capable and underway.
Now, why do you think that it seems that they're on track faster than we are, and seem to be more together in terms of accomplishing things? What is different for them than the U.S. and other countries?
One of the things in an authoritarian society, I had the picture of SpaceX's Starship burning up.
Yes.
They don't talk about failures.
So
there's places that are very difficult to live in that you get sent if you... I'm being silly. But it's probably not that silly. But first off, they're really good.
So they
have a commitment like we did during Apollo. One of the things about space programs It is wonderful, and you could argue that the current administration has forgotten this phrase, soft power. This is huge in international relationships and prestige. Soft power, we could go around, forgetting about the science, we could go around saying, America, we landed on the moon. And all of a sudden the rest of the world goes, that's pretty neat. America is number one or something. We're not going to talk about the problem. It says we're a leader in technology and technology is the future. This, yes, they're going to get great science, et cetera, et cetera. They have fabulous engineers. Remember, almost every high-tech device mass marketed in the United States is built in China because they have the engineering chops.
Mm.
Your iPhone wouldn't be a fraction of what it is if you had Americans building it. You wouldn't get it for the same price, let's just say that.
Yes, it'll be a lot more expensive, yes.
Yeah. And so they have the engineering clout. They have the government commitment. They have everything you need that we had in Apollo. And they have a deadline. They may not make it exactly. But I wouldn't bet too much against them. And there we have it. That's the real update for Artemis. These are the things, there's lots of moving parts. And I hope you enjoyed.
Well, thank you, Frank. It's been a pleasure talking with you. We look forward to your future talks. And everyone's welcome to see him in person give the talk the last Sunday of every month. Correct. At 2 p.m. at ISEC, which is the InfoAge Space Exploration Center. Maybe by that point, maybe soon, we're getting the dish working. But in any case, he's going to be giving talks every month.
And I hope to see you.
All right. Thank you.